This is the East Lyme Board of Selectmen
Cell phone system.
meeting. This is a regular meeting of January 16th, and I'll call the meeting to order. If you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since we last met, we lost our former town clerk in our town, Leslie Blaze, who is a remarkable woman who has a remarkable family, and maybe we could have a moment of silence to remember her and her family. Thank you. Additional agenda consent items, are there any?
No.
Delegations then? Would anyone like to speak? Mr. Schultz? Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of January 2nd, 2019.
I'll move to approve the regular meeting minutes of January 2nd, 2019 as submitted.
Second.
Comments, corrections? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Consent calendar, sir.
Move to approve the consent calendar for the meeting of January 2nd, 2019 in the amount of $2,464.07.
Second.
Motion seconded twice. Any comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Terrific. We're pleased to have our award-winning senior center director. You must have won some award sometime in your life. Kathy Wilson's here to talk about the Para House account and a requested expenditure, or a couple of expenditures. Would you mind coming to the podium? Hi.
Mr. Nickerson?
Rather than me read your narrative, why don't you just let us know, and I'm assuming when you get to this point, your Commission on Aging has already approved
Yes.
this, and I'll remind the board that, but what are you asking for tonight?
So there's two proposals. The first one is regarding the purchase of an application that my bus drivers can download on their personal smartphones. What we're finding is we have a lot of riders that can't see or hear our vehicle, so the bus will pull up, beep, no answer, they call, the driver calls the office calls the rider, get the rider rolling, office calls back the driver. So there's an awful lot of phone calls that aren't necessary that are going through the senior center if the driver could make the call directly to the client. But having a cell phone and having the world know my cell phone number, I understand why they'd be hesitant to not to use their own cell phone. So this particular application will identify one telephone number, so the drivers would come in, activate the app on their phone, it would identify it as the East Lyme Senior Center bus or something, and then the driver at stop A could call stop B, hey, I'm heading your way, make sure you get ready, and then the client would be ready and prevent the phone calls coming through the office and us having to make the phone calls back and all of that extra sort of extraneous communication. Excuse me, we looked at potentially buying cell phones for the drivers, but that just felt unwieldy because most people still have their own personal phone and then they'd have a work phone.
Right.
So we thought that this was a pretty economical way to handle this situation. It's $25 a month. It goes up to 5 phones. So I currently have 4 drivers. It would be the same telephone number, and it would identify the number as the senior center or the East Lyme Senior Center bus, because a suggestion was, well, maybe we could block numbers on the driver's personal phone, but then the rider may not particularly answer the phone if they don't identify or know what the number is. So we thought we would try this from now till maybe the end of June and see if this works, and if it does, then we would move it into operation next budget coming up.
Nice.
So that's expenditure number 1, and that's, what was that, $150.
$150 for the application.
Right. And that's an application also, it's tied to the senior center, it's not tied to the driver, so if we lose drivers, it's a very easy thing to change the number or whatever we have to do to to keep it secure.
Great.
The second expenditure is the registration software that we're currently sharing with the Park and Rec Department. This is a software that we've used now for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. It is a software that is specific for Park and Rec departments. It's not specific for senior centers. There's a whole component that's not on there, which is transportation. It also is a very sophisticated software, so there's a whole lot of stuff that we have no desire to use. Golf management, field management, stuff that just has no bearing on the senior center operation. And it has gotten more sophisticated, which is great, but it's also gotten very, very expensive. So we're opting out, or we'd like to opt out and get a software that is specific for senior centers. We looked at 3. This was by far the most economical. It's $800 a year for annual registration fee, which most softwares are $1,000 or more. The RecTrack, I think, is $13,000, some crazy figure. So we'd like to do that and start that in March if we can get it up and running by then. We will have to purchase some equipment. Some of it is going to be like, like you got the little key fobs and you have your little ID cards. And we'll have different scanning stations where somebody would just put their little fob in, or it's not really a fob, but the ID card.
Yeah.
And it would just identify them as, what they're doing and what they're here for. And little handheld scanners that we would run around and just get attendance that way. So it just would make it one system for the senior center that's specific to senior centers that will help us with transportation, will help us with volunteer management, and will just be a heck of a lot less expensive than the registration software that we're using right now.
I'll add that the Parks and Rec are also abandoning that $13,000 system. So while you're opting out, so are they. They're going to a much cheaper system too, and that will be presented in the budget forthcoming. So this is your answer to that. You may have started this avalanche, but sounds like a great system, and I know you've checked out more than one. Right, and the other ones were the annual registration fee was usually $2,500, $3,000. It was significantly higher. Yeah. So and it just seems. And I do know this is a software that started out in Minnesota, I believe. There are Connecticut senior centers that have been using it and like it, and centers that have been around a while, and people that have been in the business for a while, and they like it very much. So. Other questions from the board? Anyone?
I'll move to approve an expenditure of up to $2,650 from the Powerhouse account, up to $2,500 to purchase new software registration and required equipment for the senior center, and up to $150 to purchase an application for the senior center drivers to install on their phones so that they can directly call transportation participants without their personal numbers being revealed.
Second.
And is there any further comment or questions? Any discussion? Terrific. Thank you for, once again, doing your homework and improving the senior center in another way.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Thanks for coming out tonight.
Good night, guys.
Appreciate it. Discussion and possible action of the unaffiliated employees contract. I know that Mrs. Hardy and Mr. Siri had done some work. I'm in this contract, so traditionally the first selectman kind of steps away. So I think I'll do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Over the last few weeks, Rosette and I met a couple times with Joe Bergaw and Victor Bueno, the town engineer, and went over some of the items of their concern, and we came to an agreement which we think was beneficial to both the town as well as the members of the unaffiliated group. So, Roseanne, you have anything to add to that? Or? Okay. One of the things that we did not alter was they have the town contributes to an HSA, and they have a certain premium cost share. We didn't touch those because we left that where they are right now because it looks as if the town will be going to a different medical plan. So rather than get into that negotiation and then have to change it in a few months, we just left that where it was. So since I'm chairing, I'll let you make the motion right there.
Okay. I'll move to approve the agreement between the town of East Lyme and the unaffiliated group of employees for fiscal year 1920.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. And now we'll-
so do you want to mention that we are in the process of reviewing?
Oh, one thing too, we are in the process of reviewing some things because there really is no good handbook that covers the working situation for the unaffiliated. So we're going to be working on that over the next few weeks and hopefully bringing that back for presentation and vote within the not-too-distant future.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Some of that work hasn't been updated for well over a decade, so it's high time we clean that up and clean the language up. Next on our agenda is an updated FOIA policy, Freedom of Information Act policies. I just, I had a conversation with the Freedom of Information Commission, Tom Hennick, who has visited our town many times, and we had a discussion about cameras specifically, where the law, the statute that establishes the FOIA allows for hand scanners. And way back when, maybe at that very moment, maybe for that 5 minutes in history, hand scanners was an in thing. You don't see many people buying hand scanners nowadays, but everyone's carrying a smartphone on them. And while the law and the act and the statute doesn't address cameras, whether it's a camera, a smartphone, a video camera, Mr. Hennick suggested that we establish a policy whether or not we were going to allow cameras to be used in the place of a hand scanner for the same type of fee. But specifically, we should mention it, and we should actually have that policy. And while all of our agencies and departments in town are posting the 50 cents a copy and $20 for a hand scan, I'd like to also just make sure that we have, as a Board of Selectmen, have laid down this policy townwide to cover all departments and agencies, and to include the camera as an accommodation, as a compromise to anybody that wants to come in and use their camera. Now officially they can, and we acknowledge their ability to be used. So this is it. I'd probably just ask for a motion to adopt said policy.
I'll move to approve the updated FOIA policies for the town of East Lyme as outlined here too and attached as Exhibit 1.
Second.
Okay, I'll just read the. We have a motion. It's been seconded, but I'll just read it for the record. All black and white copies, 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, shall be 50 cents a page. Hand scanners is $20 a day with unlimited use, and to accommodate those who wish to take photographs of documents via camera, smartphone, or video, etc. The charge is $20 a day, unlimited use. It just clarifies the policy.
I have a couple of comments.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed paper size is specified for 8.5 by 11. However, people frequently come in and look for legal documents, and that's a different size paper. That's legal paper. So do they, is that still 50 cents a page, or are we specifically targeting?
You know what?
it to say-
Where the motion just refers to the exhibit, I can change the exhibit to say letter or legal size. My concern was color copying, which is far more expensive.
Yes.
And literally, we have documentation, we have maps, we have blueprints, and
Right.
we can copy those, but they're established by the departments that own those machines. The clerk's office has a sophisticated copy machine, and she has different charges for different sizes. But I think that's a great idea. So I will say all black and white copies, in parentheses, letter or legal size, shall be 50 cents per page. I think that covers us.
And then the last claimer, I'd like to note that it specifically says documents.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I don't know if we want to emphasize that word, documents, as opposed to randomly coming in and taking pictures of things other than documents.
That's why the documents is on there. There is a First Amendment thing. There is where we can't stop someone from, say, coming into one of our meetings and videoing it or taking a picture of one of us or something. But when people are using the FOI Act and specifically looking for documents in a file, that's why I put documents there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I that's why I wanted to make
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
that we were emphasizing that this policy is for documents, not total
Correct.
random use of other recording
Correct.
devices.
Taking a picture of me is free.
Really?
Yes.
We had no idea.
Should the word documents be put in between black and white document copies as well?
Well, I put documents in
the
because of the
camera
camera situation, because there's this issue about coming into the town hall with video or cameras and taking pictures of, say, things on the wall, and people have done that. And that wouldn't be a $20 charge. It's going into the clerk's vault and starting to take pictures of land records and such. I think we're covered, sir. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Terrific. Last on our new business is to schedule a special meeting coming up this Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019. It'll be for the purposes of discussion and possible action on the police building proposal, which I know many of you have been caught up to date on the issue. So we want to meet this coming Tuesday.
I'll move to schedule a special Board of Selectmen meeting for January 22nd, 2019, at 7 p.m. in the upper meeting room at East Lyme Town Hall for the purpose of discussion and possible action regarding the proposed public safety complex.
Second?
I'll note that it is 7 p.m., not 7:30. Our normal start time is 7:30. This is a 7 p.m. meeting, special meeting in this room. There is a water and sewer meeting that's normally scheduled for this room. I believe they're going to move across the hall for our purposes and for our convenience. I don't know who's going to chair it, since
I
the two
think
of us will be
they've talked about moving it
They
to
might move it.
6 o'clock, and
And they
that
may
way
move
I
it.
could do it, and
Yeah, great. All right, I'll call the
What
vote.
is the actual
Is,
seating capacity of this room?
108
Okay,
by the fire marshal.
this will be jam-packed.
Maybe. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Terrific. The hazard mitigation plan is a document that is in your folder for you to refer to, and I'd ask you to read it, take it home and read it. If you would like a presentation on it, Victor Benny, our town engineer, can make one. This is very similar to others that he's made annually. The requirement is for it to be presented to the Board of Selectmen, but not in an oral way, but just given to the Board of Selectmen. It is now given to you, but should you like a presentation of its contents or have questions after you read it through, then we will schedule either Victor to come in, or if it's just one of you, maybe we can have a one-on-one. Or if you think it's appropriate for a town meeting, we'll do that.
Okay, so the only item on the special meeting for the 22nd is the
Yes,
public safety building.
Yes, ma'am, unless something comes up before we post the agenda. That's the only thing we're planning on. Correct. No other.
Just a general question on the hazardous plan. The action numbers, skip some, are those from previous plans that have been completed, or are they items that are no longer applicable? Goes,
I can ask the author of the plan.
okay.
I see what you're saying. Where it drops.
I just don't know if they're old actions that are already completed, or.
Yeah.
So.
I think it is, because this is a follow-up to
This is a follow-up.
the previous plan that we approved
Yeah,
last
12
year.
and 15 are new. That fold-out paper in the back kind of talks about each action.
It looks like the numbers correspond to the first column of the fiscal year. So there's no 1,
Yeah, yeah.
there's no 8 and 9. So it seems like they're addressing items in that fiscal year.
They're addressing specific items, and there's others that either have been already handled, or don't need to be reviewed, or
Well, yeah.
they touched it and it's done, kind of thing.
It says carry forward on most of the ones that are omitted.
Right.
But there's also some ones
I
listed.
can get you that answer, Paul, and we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Anything else? For ex officio reports, who'd like to start? No random tonight.
I'll start.
Okay.
Planning met, they started up a steering committee for the 2020 update to the POCD. They're gonna invite other members from other commissions to it. There's supposed to be a kickoff on January 28th with a follow-up meeting in February. They approved a 2-lot re-subdivision on 18th Society Road. There's the 4-lot re-subdivision of 44 Lovers Lane was withdrawn. They expect that there will be a application in the future on that. There was 2 zoning referrals, one on the marijuana dispensary zoning description. They found it inconsistent because it didn't limit the location like it does other similar uses. They found the text amendment to change mixed-use regulation in the CO zone to be inconsistent because it seemed to restrict it. As for the library commission, as many commissions in town, they had an insurance cost increase that was passed on to the library commission of about $34,000. Due to this, they are now going to be closed on Sundays, likely till October, depending on next year's budget. And just note there's about 60 to 90 people that use the library on average on Sunday. There was 1 new member appointed, and there's 1 more to be appointed next meeting. That's all I got. Tomorrow is building commission for me. I'll have a report at the next meeting.
Thank you. Mrs. Hardy?
All right, we heard from the Commission on Aging this evening. Zoning Commission has had, for the past 2 or 3 meetings, a very full agenda, but some of those applications, as Mr. Solano just referred to, have been withdrawn temporarily and will reappear later. It's a pretty heavy agenda for tomorrow evening. Natural Resources Committee met, and continuing compilation of the water study that they've been working on now for 2 years. It's going to be very extensive and very informative, I think, and voluminous. So hopefully we'll have at least a year to read through it. That's it.
Mrs. Siri?
Okay, last week there was a Parks and Rec meeting. What they've done is they approved the request for the Hartford Triathlon on Sunday, August 11th in the morning. That has been here every year for a few decades. It just runs every year. Last couple of years, there's been a lot of traffic tie-ups in the vicinity of St. Agnes and so forth, so they're appointing a person to be at St. Agnes to try and help with people leaving, coming out, because that's when the bikes are running. It does tie up the that end of Main Street for a little bit, for about 30 or 40 minutes. So they're going to try and do what they can as much as possible to work with St. Agnes to minimize the inconvenience to the people going to church, as well as people coming out of the Black Point Four Corners as well. So it was a dialogue, and they have moved it 1 week later in the summer. It used to be the first weekend, now it's the second weekend in August. Figured there might be a little less beach traffic at that time of the year. That was it.
Mr. Cunningham?
I attended the Historic Properties Commission meeting, and they're already beginning the planning for the Bike and Barbecue bike event, which was very successful last year. And it looks like this year they're going to be getting more assistance from Parks and Rec. They're going to be taking a greater role in it, and they're excited about that. That's going to lend to it being even more successful of the year coming up. And there was more discussion of how the Historical Properties Commission can work with the other commissions for the other historical properties in town and try to coordinate more with those other entities and organizations to make things more efficient all the way around. So they're very engaged in that process. That's my report.
Great. Hey, Mr. Daigle.
Nothing to report this evening.
Fantastic. I have a few things. Obviously, the police building has been dominating conversation in town, and my schedule. We finished our third forum last night at the high school, and we've fully built out the web page on the town website, eltownhall.com. There's a link to all the paperwork, all sorts of videos and pictures of current facility, the proposed facility, the costs, the build-out, all sorts of things there that we've put together, and the slideshows from the various presentations. We're expecting to hear this next Tuesday. The Board of Finance will hear it next Wednesday at their that'd be a special meeting as well, the 23rd. From that point, should it go forward, then we'll be scheduling a referendum to be somewhere in the third week of February is my estimate at this point. There is, I'm deep in budgets right now with all the department heads that come in with their budgets, and we sit down and go over them. It's a preliminary discussion, and then we go back through it again. Budgets always come in, much higher than we want to start. So we start making initial cuts, and we'll be bringing a budget to you. I'll tell you, it won't be a zero like it was last year. There's some pressure to tackle some issues in town, and we'll go through that when we bring the budget forward to you. There's a pasta dinner being put on by Rita and Joe Palazzo to benefit 100% of the proceeds benefit the Miracle League. I think it's $25. 20, only 20. And listen, Mrs. Palazzo can make a meatball. And I've had her meatballs. They're incredible. So Rita and Joe have been already cooking and preparing for February 8th. And at dinner time. I don't know the time. But tickets are available at the town clerk's office, and I believe down at maybe the senior center. I bet they're available down there too, because they do so much dedication. They do so much volunteer work down at the senior center, cooking for our seniors and Meals on Wheels, etc. But if you all could consider coming out for that, February 8th is the date. It will be at the senior center, that wing off to the right. They'll put the tablecloths out, and we'll sing Italian songs and eat meatballs.
Mark, the time is 6 p.m.
6 p.m. on
And
that evening.
There's a child rate too, 12 and under for 10.
Thank you. And
Yep.
and you got to get your tickets in advance, and they want to be able to plan on the 120 people. I'll be selling it out at 120 people. So do consider that. Water and Sewer have been meeting very regularly because they've been working on their sewer capacity, new regulations that when they get an application for a development, that instead of it just being an administrative approval, which it's always been, that they go to the commission and have to perform to certain standards and procedures. And while a development might be issued capacity, we don't want them holding on to it forever if it's not going to actually be built. And we have limited capacity. We're kind of nearing the end of that capacity. There's discussions about what we're going to do